Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition and how you as a Dungeon Master can properly understand Dungeons & Dragons nobility and how incredibly dangerous any Dungeons & Dragons noble can truly be, but from a very, very unique perspective of them harming a singular number of people, dozens of people, hundreds of people, or even thousands of people in really unusual, subtle ways that they don't even acknowledge they're harming people. Nobility is a real and the way we're going to get there is we're going to talk about the show Search Party. It was created by TBS. It's on HBO Max. It has 4 seasons out. It's a real sleeper. I just watched all 4 seasons of Search Party. It blew me away. I think it's every Dungeon Master. It's an every Dungeon Master narrative it's a narrative that every Dungeon Master has to see. There is one exception. The show should not be viewed by people below 18 years old. It's got content that isn't made for kids. It's a show that's made for college age and above. Okay, so it's not really appropriate for high school or junior high. Now, why do I make that distinction? Don't forget. You can be a junior high Dungeon Master. You can be a high school Dungeon Master. The game is made for 12 and up. And only very, very narrow portions of the game are really made only for college age and up. And also, just want to say, we as Dungeon Masters, it's very important to remember that Dungeons & Dragons needs to remain accessible to junior high Dungeon Masters and to high school Dungeon Masters. Oh, and here's one. It does not need to be accessible to children. Okay? Nothing in the game should make it accessible to children. It's not part of the group, right? It's 12 and up, right? But what we're talking about today is specific to college age and up. All right. So let's jump in here. This is really fascinating because I truly believe I have a better understanding of Dungeons & Dragons nobility, kings, queens, princesses, dukes, duchesses, right? Than I have ever had before because of the show Search Party. Okay, so let's get into this. So one, I know I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. I'm just so wonderfully thankful to Dungeons & Dragons because it really is a filter for my life, right? I don't really experience anything, almost anything, without putting it through a Dungeons & Dragons filter, right? And the show Search Party, I was enjoying it as entertainment, but very, very quickly I was like, there's a Dungeons & Dragons lesson to be learned here. And I learned it, and I really want to share it with you because I think it's really critical. So one, what do you do with rich people, okay? So the show Search Party is about rich, entitled, New York elites, okay? Privileged people. And it is an absolutely brilliant show. Search Party I've never seen anything like it. It's definitely one of the top 10 television shows I've ever watched. Its narrative is realistic, compelling, complex, and beautiful. It truly is one of the best stories I've ever seen. Now, if you're a Dungeon Master, right, and you watch Search Party, you're going to come out the other end of Search Party a much, much better Dungeon Master. Because one, you're going to understand rich, entitled elites better than you have ever, okay? You're going to understand why they're the way they are and why the way they choose to live is often incredibly dangerous unintentionally to those people around them. And Search Party shows this in a way that I have never seen any show illustrate this. Show don't tell is said everywhere. That advice is given to writers constantly, but it is rarely ever followed, okay? And Search Party is the first true show don't tell of why rich, entitled, privileged elites are so incredibly dangerous to the people around them, usually unintentionally. And this is the part that I really just blew my mind, is this idea that you are getting this situation, you are seeing this situation, okay, where large numbers of people can be very, very directly harmed by rich, entitled, privileged elites. And they don't really even know that they're doing it. They're not aware why. And again, Search Party shows how you get there, okay? How this all happens, right? So when we run kings, queens, prince, and princesses, I think most of you out there are exactly where I was before I watched Search Party, right? People will say, "Oh, money can't buy happiness," right? And then and everybody does the same thing. And they're like, "Yeah, well, I'd like to try. You can give me the money, and I'll see if I can get the happiness, because I'm betting I can," right? And when you're done with Search Party, you will be happy. You are not rich, entitled, not a rich, entitled, privileged elite. I don't think I'm a rich, entitled, privileged elite. It's possible I am. I'm not. I'm upper middle class. I don't know if that qualifies me. I don't know. I don't think so. I invite correction if anybody thinks I am. I'm driving a Kia. I'm driving a Kia Soul. Come on, yeah, all right. So let's get there. All right. So basically, when we think about these princes and princesses, we think they have good lives. They don't. They have terrible, terrible, terrible lives. Okay. And this is what Search Party showed me. So the people in Search Party, it's 4 people. There's a girl named Dory. Now, what's interesting about her is she's a person of color. And that's really fascinating, because whenever you hear rich, entitled, privileged elites, often you will think white people. One of the things that's really great in America is that we've reached a point where there could be lots of incredibly rich, entitled, privileged elites who are people of color. That's actually, I know that sounds strange, like why is that good? It's actually good. We do need to have a spread across all classes, and the fact that we now have rich, entitled, privileged elites who are not white is it's actually a good thing, right? We need to get to a point where we have, well, yeah, it's a good thing, right? I know that's complicated, but it is absolutely a good thing. Now, why is that, just because we have it in America, why is that important? Well, the number one by far setting for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is Matt Mercer's Exandria. It came out in the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, and that is set up as like the super woke Drow Nation, and like the super unwoke Dwendalian Nation, who are like kind of the yeah. And then the merchants, who are a little mix of both, right? And that world is the same way. It's very much like the world being shown in Search Party, where you could have a rich, entitled, privileged elite who is not a white person, right? And would be a different heritage, like half orc or in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Very, very interesting. So Dory is a rich, entitled, privileged elite who is specifically who is not a white person. All the other people in the show, the main protagonists, are. There is Drew. He's a very tall white dude, and this show, I've thought this for a long time. Height is a superpower in among the rich. People respond to height, and this show shows it. It shows how powerful the simple one attribute of height can be. How many people respond to simply a person having height? It's incredible, right? How much power comes from that one attribute. Okay. Then there's a character named Elliot. Okay. And then last, there's a character named Portia. These people are all monster people. This show is really fascinating. It has no good people in it. It's all, the protagonists are monstrous. The protagonists are monster people. Every single one of these people are absolutely terrible, terrible human beings, right? They're rich, entitled, privileged elite, and they have a very distinct belief. They believe that they deserve to be happy. I hear you're like, well, Scott, everybody deserves to be happy. Do we? I'm not sure about that, right? And I really walked away from Search Party with a lot of wisdom, in my opinion. I'm not sure people deserve to be happy, right? I do think people deserve to be content, right? Or they deserve to be safe, They deserve to be free, right? They deserve to be, sheltered and fed, and but do they deserve to be happy? Because here's the thing that became incredibly apparent as I was watching Search Party. What happens if your happiness demands that you get something that someone else has or multiple people have, and you won't be happy until you have those things? So if you believe that you deserve to be happy and other people have what you need to be happy, you got a problem, right? And when you believe that you deserve that thing, you will take incredible actions to get it. And when you're privileged, you specifically have rights and abilities to get things to make you happy that can cause massive harm to the people around you, right? And in the show, this went to the price of murder. Two people are murdered in this show by Dory, Drew, Elliot, and Portia. Okay, they're all directly responsible for the murder of two people, right? And you're like, how did these seemingly nice, they're not actually nice at all, they're quite monstrous people, get to a situation where people are being murdered, right? Well, it comes from this idea of if you are a rich, entitled, privileged person, doesn't matter what your heritage is, doesn't matter if you're black or white or Asian, right? Really doesn't matter at all. How do you get to the point where you are, how do you get to the point where you believe you deserve to be happy, and then you do what you need to get what you need to be happy, but it causes massive harm to people around you? So the show explains this, right? And this is very true for America, and I think this would be true in most Dungeons & Dragons games for kings, queens, princes, and princesses, for dukes and duchesses. The way that this occurs is that basically you have a situation where you have people who cannot love themselves because their parents were incapable of loving themselves and loving each other, right? And so you see these families where the parents are really not functional at loving themselves or loving their partner. And then at that point, they can't love their children, and the children grow up without knowing what love is. And then but at the same time, they're told you deserve happiness. And it becomes very obvious that if somebody else's pain needs to occur so that you could be happy, that's okay because you deserve to be happy, right? And so that's how privileged, that's how rich, entitled, privileged elites become incredibly dangerous. They are set up in a situation where they don't know how to love themselves because their parents didn't know how to love themselves or each other. They're not shown any model of stable, functional love. Then they are incapable of loving themselves. It becomes clear they're not really capable of loving others, but they're told and they believe deep in their heart that they deserve happiness. And so that is a mixture for making sure that the people around you do not ever get in the way of you getting what you need to be happy because you deserve happiness. But no one told these people everyone deserves. Well, first of all, everyone being happy is probably not even possible. It's not scalable, right? Most people want to be a rich celebrity. Our world can't support that. It can't, right? Celebrity is a few people at the top who get a lot of attention and money. It literally is like, you can't, it's not scalable, right? So the thing that a lot of people want, they can't have, right? So only a few are going to have it. And so it's this really super unique mixture of rich, entitled, privileged elite, right? And that's what your D&D kings and queens and dukes and duchesses and prince and princesses are, right? So I never really, you hear the term money can't buy you happiness. You don't really understand the horrible, horrible, horrible lives and the horrible people that these nobles are, because they've never had to struggle. They've never had to really get grit. And there's no formulation for getting them to understand that their happiness is not preeminent. And so they harm others very frequently. And if you're going to run kings and queens, prince and princesses, dukes and duchesses in Dungeons and Dragons, in a way that isn't a caricature, but is a deep understanding of why nobility are generally absolutely monstrous people. Search Party is required viewing for every dungeon master who wants to take their game to the next level and not run caricatures. Gotta watch this thing. You will have a new understanding of why D&D nobility have horrible lives and are horrible people. It's really brilliant. Thanks for letting me share this with you. I'd love to hear your opinions. Do you think that the idea that we tell each other everyone deserves happiness, do you think we should continue to tell people that? Once you watch Search Party, it becomes outrageously obvious that we have a functional problem in our society because it's nonsense. It's clear nonsense. People deserve to be safe. People deserve to be free. People deserve food, shelter. I'm not sure people deserve much more than that, right? And by telling them that, it's one of the reasons why we have this clash for the things at the top. And that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.